Hey there, folks. Welcome back to my channel. Today, I've got a spooky story to share with you all. It's a tale of supernatural encounters in the historic and hauntingly beautiful city of Savannah, Georgia. Grab your popcorn and settle in because this is going to give you goosebumps. Now, before I get into the main event, make sure to hit that subscribe button and hit the notification bell so you won't miss any of my future eerie adventures. It all happened a few years ago when I decided to take a solo trip to Savannah. The city is known for its rich history and countless ghost stories, and I was eager to experience it all firsthand. One evening, as the sun was setting, casting eerie shadows on the cobblestone streets, I found myself wandering through an old, seemingly abandoned alley. The air felt heavy and the atmosphere was charged with an inexplicable energy. I noticed a weathered building at the end of the alley, its windows shattered and ivy creeping up the crumbling walls. It looked like it hadn't seen life in centuries, but something drew me toward it. Against my better judgment, I ventured closer to the decaying structure. As I got closer, I felt an icy chill in the air, and I heard faint whispers that sent shivers down my spine. With my heart pounding, I stepped inside, and that's when things took a truly terrifying turn. The temperature dropped drastically, and the air grew thick with an eerie presence. I couldn't explain it, but I was not alone in that building. I could see flickering. Suddenly, I heard a child's laughter echoing through the darkness. I followed the sound down a narrow corridor and found myself in a room with an old, tattered rocking chair swaying back and forth on its own. My heart was in my throat as I watched the chair move, and then it abruptly stopped. The laughter ceased, and an eerie silence filled the room. I knew I had to get out of there, but my feet were frozen in place. With all the courage I could muster, I ran out of that building, my heart pounding and my mind racing. I can't explain what I experienced that night, but I know one thing's for sure: Savannah holds secrets and stories that will send chills down your spine. So, there you have it, my chilling encounter in the heart of Savannah, Georgia. If you ever find yourself in this historic city, be prepared to uncover its haunted past, but remember, not all stories have happy endings. I've got a chilling story to share with you all about my recent visit to the Savannah, Georgia Cotton Exchange. Now, I've always been fascinated by historical places, but little did I know that this adventure would turn into a truly eerie and chilling experience. So, grab a seat, turn off the lights, and let me take you on a journey through this haunting encounter. Savannah is a city steeped in history with its cobblestone streets and historic architecture. I had heard about the Cotton Exchange, a place that had once been the epicenter of the cotton trade in the South during the 19th century. It was a bustling hub, but it also held a dark history. Despite its dark past, I was drawn to explore this historic building and unravel its secrets. As I approached the Cotton Exchange, the air was thick with anticipation. The building itself was a grand structure, a testament to the wealth of the cotton industry in its heyday. I couldn't help but feel a shiver run down my spine as I stepped through its imposing entrance. Inside, the atmosphere was different, to say the least. The place seemed frozen in time. The dust-covered windows allowed only feeble rays of light to penetrate the darkness within. The creaking wooden floors echoed with each step I took, creating an eerie soundtrack to my journey. As I wandered deeper into the Cotton Exchange, I began to hear faint whispers, almost like echoes from the past. I couldn't make out the words, but the sensation of being watched intensified. Was I alone in there, or were the spirits of the past keeping a close eye on me? And then it happened. I saw a shadowy figure out of the corner of my eye. It was a silhouette, dressed in clothing from a bygone era. My heart raced as I turned to get a better look, but there was nothing there. It was as if the figure had vanished into thin air. As I continued exploring, I noticed pockets of inexplicable coldness in certain areas. The temperature dropped dramatically, and I could see my breath. I had read about cold spots being associated with paranormal activity, and it sent shivers down my spine. The further I ventured, the more I felt an overwhelming sense of oppression, as if the very walls were closing in on me. It was as though the past was pressing down on me, the weight of the history within these walls becoming almost unbearable. Objects seemed to move on their own, and I could hear faint footsteps echoing in the distance. My camera captured strange orbs of light darting across the screen. It was as if the spirits of the Cotton Exchange were trying to communicate with me. As I finally made my way out of the Cotton Exchange, I couldn't help but feel a mixture of relief and unease. What had I experienced in there? Was it the restless spirits of the past, or simply my imagination playing tricks on me? One thing was certain, my visit to the Savannah Cotton Exchange had left an indelible mark on me. It was a dark night when I arrived in Savannah. The air was thick with humidity and the Spanish moss draped eerily from the gnarled trees. I knew I was in for a hauntingly unforgettable experience. I decided to start my journey at the Colonial Park Cemetery, a place with a history as rich as it is chilling. As I stepped through the black iron gates, the cemetery seemed to come alive with shadows. The gravestones, some dating back centuries, stood sentinel in the darkness. My flashlight was casting eerie shadows, and I couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. It was said that this place was haunted by restless spirits, and I could feel their presence all around me. Walking deeper into the cemetery, I heard faint whispers carried by the wind. My heart pounded in my chest as I followed the eerie voices. They led me to an old, crumbling crypt. The whispers grew louder, and I could almost make out the words, but they were unintelligible. It felt as if the spirits were trying to communicate with me from beyond the grave. Just when I thought things couldn't get any creepier, I noticed a shadowy figure lurking in the distance. It moved slowly, and I could barely make out any of its features. My heart raced as I followed it deeper into the graveyard. Was it a restless spirit or something more sinister? I couldn't leave Savannah without visiting the legendary Bonaventure Cemetery. As I entered, the grand oak trees formed a natural canopy above, casting eerie patterns of light and shadow on the moss-covered graves. The air was thick with an odd presence, and I couldn't shake the feeling that I wasn't alone. In Bonaventure, I stumbled upon the famous Weeping Angel statue. Its face was a mask of sorrow, and it seemed as if it was shedding tears of stone. Legend had it that anyone who touched the statue would be cursed. I couldn't resist the temptation, and I reached out to touch it. The chill that ran down my spine left me terrified. As I left the graveyards of Savannah, I couldn't help but reflect on the chilling experiences I had encountered. The city's haunted history came to life that night, and I felt as if I had brushed shoulders with the supernatural. If you ever find yourself in Savannah and you're looking for a frightening adventure, make sure to explore its graveyards at night. But beware, for you may just encounter something that defies explanation and leaves you with a story you'll never forget. I recently had the opportunity to visit Fort Jackson in Savannah, Georgia, and let me tell you, it was one of the most terrifying experiences of my life. So buckle up, because this is not for the faint of heart. As I approached Fort Jackson, I couldn't help but be in awe of its majestic presence. This historic fort, dating back to the early 19th century, is located on the Savannah River and played a crucial role in various conflicts, including the Civil War. But it's not just its rich history that piqued my interest, it's the countless stories of paranormal activity that have been reported here over the years. I decided to start my exploration during the late afternoon, hoping that daylight would offer some comfort. The first thing I noticed as I entered the fort was its eerie silence. Despite being surrounded by the bustling city of Savannah, Fort Jackson felt like a world frozen in time. As I walked deeper into the fort's interior, I couldn't shake the feeling that I was being watched. I had heard stories of ghostly apparitions and disembodied voices, and I couldn't help but wonder if I was about to experience something truly supernatural. My first encounter happened in the old barracks. As I was exploring the dimly lit corridors, I heard faint whispers echoing through the empty rooms. It was as if the spirits of long-deceased soldiers were sharing their secrets with me. The air grew colder, and my breath turned to mist in front of me, despite the warm Georgia weather. I continued on my journey, and as I reached the prison cells, I felt an overwhelming sense of sadness and despair. The stories of Confederate soldiers who suffered and died here during the Civil War suddenly felt very real. One of the most chilling moments of my visit was when I heard what sounded like a woman's cries coming from the nearby marshes. Legend has it that the spirit of a grieving mother who lost her child in the nearby waters still lingers around Fort Jackson, searching for her lost baby. The mournful wails sent shivers down my spine, and I couldn't shake the feeling that I wasn't alone. As the sun began to set, I decided to make my way to the fort's iconic drawbridge. It was said that the ghost of a Confederate sentry could be seen pacing the bridge at night. As I stood there, I saw a faint figure in a Confederate uniform. It seemed to materialize out of thin air, and I could hear the soft echo of its footsteps on the wooden boards. My heart raced as I watched the ghostly figure vanish into the darkness. My visit to Fort Jackson was an unforgettable and, at times, truly terrifying experience. The combination of its haunting history and the eerie atmosphere left me with more questions than answers. Is Fort Jackson truly haunted, or is it just a product of the vivid imaginations of those who visit? I can't say for sure, but I do know that I won't be forgetting this visit anytime soon. If you're ever in Savannah and you're brave enough to explore the unknown, I highly recommend paying a visit to Fort Jackson. It was about 3 years ago, my fiancé and I decided to take a little trip to Savannah, Georgia to celebrate our 10th year anniversary. This was not the first time we went to Savannah, as we had gone a few years before as well and loved it so much we knew we had to visit again. Last visit we stayed in a hotel, but this time we were staying in our first Airbnb. The place we chose I was fascinated with. It was rich with history and had a charming appeal to it. A little background on the building to give you an idea as to why I was so excited to stay here. The building was built in 1859, it had an upper and lower range and was used for a warehouse and office space. During the Civil War occupation of Savannah, some of the General Sherman's lower-ranked officers used this building's empty office spaces. When the building was renovated in 1901, workers found a Civil War map drawn on the wall by Union soldiers tracing their march from Tennessee through Georgia. Pretty cool, right? I guess you have to be a history fanatic to understand my excitement. After 7 long hours in the car, we eventually arrived. We made our way to the Airbnb. The entrance to the apartment was a long wooden bridge that led up to a grand white door. Beneath the bridge was the cobblestone street, which ran alongside the lower range of the building. Through the front door, you were met by a flight of oakwood stairs. Once you made your way up the stairs, you were in the heart of the apartment. It was very spacious with an open floor plan. From the entrance of the living room, you could see this amazing, historical, whitewashed brick wall. You could tell the brick wall was a part of the original building and only minor cosmetic fixes were made over the years. In the center of the brick wall, you had a little fireplace that had since been bricked over and taken out of service. I was fascinated with the details of this apartment. To the right of the living room were 2 very old French wooden doors that led out to a balcony which overlooked the Savannah River. The balcony seemed very old, with only steel cables and a couple of bolts holding it to the outside wall of the building. I took my chances. I couldn't pass up the opportunity of the view it gave. The 4x4 balcony overlooked not only the river that separated Georgia from South Carolina, but River Street, the most popular part of the downtown area. There were shops, bars, restaurants, passing ships, and of course, lots of people. It was all adding up to be the perfect getaway for us. We enjoyed an evening on the town, did some sightseeing, ate some really great food, and then made our way back to the apartment to settle down for the night. When we got back, we took a load off our feet and plopped down in front of the TV. My fiancé turned the TV on and started flicking through the channels, trying to find something good to watch. While I was sitting there, I had this crazy idea: how cool would it be to just take a tiny piece of this brick wall that was in the living room as a souvenir? I knew the history behind the building and I didn't see what it could hurt. So I decided without hesitation, I'm doing it. I removed a loose piece from the brick wall and placed it in my bag for safekeeping. I wish I knew the horror that was about to unravel by doing this. Immediately it appeared as if the atmosphere in the room had changed. The once warm, charming space turned cold and daunting. I suddenly got the weird feeling that someone was watching me, or as if we were no longer alone. We continued to watch TV for a little while. My fiancé was really tired from the day and began to doze off. I, on the other hand, am a night owl. I was wide awake. To give you an idea of how the living room was set up, the TV was in the center of the room against the brick wall. As we sat on the couch, our backs were towards the door. Then to my right were the 2 old white French doors that led out to our tiny balcony. I still couldn't shake the feeling of someone watching me. It was coming from the stairwell that led to the front door. I kept checking over my shoulder to make sure no one was walking up behind me, but each time nothing. Eventually, after checking 2 more times, I gathered the courage to get up and go check down the dark staircase. I tiptoed over to the stairs and peeked my head around the corner of the wall. looked down into the darkness and thought I had seen something. I chalked it up to my mind playing tricks on me. I ran back over to the couch and covered up with a blanket while I continued to watch TV. Not even 5 minutes later, I heard the wooden floors creaking as if someone was walking around the apartment. This time I didn't get up, I just turned around and stared at the entrance to the living room, ready for someone to walk through that entryway. I was so tempted to wake my fiancé up, but knew he was tired and this was all too silly. I kept reminding myself, there's no one there. All of a sudden, the sounds of footsteps on the wooden floor became louder. The chilling sense of someone approaching me got stronger. Then I saw it. A smoky apparition of a young man in a worn Civil War uniform gliding through the room. The young man suddenly stopped midway, looked at me, and continued toward the balcony doors. The doors opened, then boom, slammed shut. I was so frightened I couldn't move, I was frozen with fear. After trying to comprehend what just happened, I jumped up and woke my fiancé. I tried to explain, but I knew I sounded crazy. My fiancé said it was probably just the wind, you must be tired, let's go to bed, and started walking towards the bedroom. Before I followed him to the room, I went to my bag and grabbed the little piece of brick I had removed earlier. I held it up and took a good look at it. I had an uneasy feeling that this was the reason I just experienced what I did. And that's a wrap for today's video. I hope you enjoyed it. If you like this video, don't forget to hit the thumbs up, and if you haven't already, subscribe to my channel for more spooky content like this.